Morning, folks. Welcome back to EC3 Really Cooks. I'm Roger Ramsey, the Executive Chef Instructor here at the Hardin County Schools Early College and Career Center. Across the kitchen, dear friend, co-teacher, and sous chef, Mr. Bobby Thompson. Today we're going to be putting together a few dishes for you, all about tomatoes. One thing you can count on in the summertime in Kentucky is going to be hot and humid, and there's going to be plentiful tomatoes. They're going to be at the farmer's market, they're going to be at the supermarket, they're going to be in neighbor's backyard, and somebody's going to give you some tomatoes, so we're going to make use of those today. So on the menu, we're going to make a bread and tomato salad called panzanella. Pretty tasty. We're going to put a little twist on it though. You'll see here shortly. We're going to, of course, we have to do a pasta dish. Mr. Bobby's going to put together a smoked tomato sauce with some fettuccine, Michael Simon recipe if you're into the Food Network thing. We're going to make a pizza margherita, explain a little bit about the history of that dish in itself. Well, we're going to do some fried green tomatoes. And first thing I'm going to do for you is to make a tomato pie. Now, understand that's a southern tomato pie, not the Boston Italian themed tomato pie, which is like a pizza. So this is a little different. So if y'all will bear with me, we're going to gather some stuff up and we're going to start making some food. There's a little bit of prep work for this tomato pie. While y'all weren't looking, I took probably about 3 pounds or so of tomatoes, whatever you have. Mix them up, make it delightful. And sliced them. Once they're sliced, I laid them out on a trivet or a cooling rack or paper towels, whatever you have, because we need to try to get the moisture out. How we're going to do that? Well, it's kind of simple. We're going to throw a little salt on it. Salt's going to draw the moisture out of the tomatoes. We're going to have to season them anyway. So let's kill those 2 birds at one time. Something else I did, went around and tried to push these seed pockets out. Something about tomato seeds, they're bitter. Some folks have a hard time digesting them, but those folks generally aren't going to worry terribly, and they're just not going to eat the dish. But the seeds in themselves can be bitter, so I pushed out the most of them. Then laid them out on some paper towels where they've already been salted, leached some of the liquid out, laid on paper towels. You can see where it pulled some more out, and then we're going to dry them some more. And we'll let those set because I have these. So these have been sliced, seeded, salted, wiped down, patted dry, and they're about ready to work. Other than tomatoes, what else we have going into this dish? We've got some salt, a little salt and pepper. We keep our salt and pepper mixed up. Just saves a step when it's time to cook. Our ratio is generally about 3 parts salt, 1 part black pepper. Some folks go 4 to 1, it's your preference. For us, it's handy. I do it at the house because it's handy. It's a short step, but it's worthwhile. Okay. We've got a little mayonnaise going in. We've got an egg plus an egg yolk. We've got a little hot sauce because, again, it's a southern thing. We've got some cheddar cheese and a little blue cheese there is going to go in. A couple of scallions, that's green onions. A little bit of parsley. And then we got our black pepper, and last but not least, we happen to have a little cornmeal. There's a reason for the cornmeal we'll get to in just a minute, but like I said, we are making a pie. So we're absolutely positively going to need our pie shell. Now you can make your own pie shell. It's easy peasy. It's flour and a little salt and some water and fat, and that's pretty much that. You can also buy them. Miss Kroger's has them sitting right there on the shelf. You can buy them refrigerated or frozen. That's a frozen one. Not that I can't, that I didn't want to. It's too hot to work. And what else we got? We've got a little bit of Dijon mustard that's going to go into the sauce. And let's get started putting this thing together. We've got our tomatoes sliced. We've got them prepped. They're ready to go. Let's turn our recipe over. Oven's preheating 425 degrees. Now I mentioned the cornmeal. This is it. What we're going to do with the cornmeal is take, and don't make it pasty, don't make it gooey, but just a little bit of cornmeal on the bottom of the crust going to help soak up that excess moisture from the tomatoes. It's going to be nice, trust me. So to make our sauce, we're going to take our mayonnaise, Mayonnaise are eggs and egg yolk. 1 whole egg, 1 egg yolk. That egg yolk's going to act as a binder, chemical in it called lecithin. That's what it does, and it does it really well. Egg yolk, hot sauce. Now, how much hot sauce you use? Your call. Little or a lot. And we're going to need just a touch of Dijon mustard. The mustards also act as an emulsifier. Not with lecithin, but that's just the nature of mustard. That's easy enough. Now we need to stir in our cheeses. Again, that's about 1/2 pound of cheddar cheese and I think about 1/2 cup or so of blue cheese. Some folks don't like blue cheese. I happen to love it. If you don't like it, don't use it. You want some Parmesan in there? That'd be a nice little funk too. A little extra saltiness. You want to use Swiss cheese, Gruyere cheese, whatever cheese you like. Recipe says we're going to use cheddar and blue. I like cheddar and blue, so that's where we're at. Now we need our scallions and a tablespoon or so of our parsley. There, it's that. Now back to our tomatoes. So we want to take about 1/3 of the tomatoes, layer them into the bottom of our pie shell, overlap them a little bit, make it pretty, best you can. A word on sanitation, if this was something that's ready to eat, as generally tomatoes are, you'd be wearing gloves. You'd scrub your hands up. I scrubbed my hands regardless. But this is going to be cooked, so I can get away with barehanding it. So, no hate eat males. Don't touch the tomatoes. Yes, you can touch the tomatoes if they're going to get cooked. About 1/2 of our cheese mixture. More tomatoes. Second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder, a little bit worse. Compacted just a touch. More cheese. And more tomatoes. And again, press everything down. Now this is going to go into a preheated oven, 425 degrees or so. 20 minutes should get us done. Actually, it's a convection oven, probably closer to 17 or 18 minutes. But we'll come back and visit this when it's done, but that is our version of the classic Southern tomato pie. Be right back with you.
Welcome back to EC3 Really Cooks. I'm Bobby Thompson, the sous chef here. Today we're going to be doing a fettuccine with a smoked tomato sauce. First thing that we did, we actually have our tomatoes. We halved them Did a little salt and pepper to them, then we smoked them in our smoker for a little over an hour, and they've just come out. And what we're gonna do then is peel the skins off of them. We've already got most of them off of there. It's actually pretty easy. You just kind of pinch the skin and they come off. Do remember though that they just came out of a very hot place when you do that, and they are still a little bit warm. We're gonna add some bacon into this dish, garlic, several different Italian seasonings, and bring it all together kind of at the end. And it's just kind of a take. Instead of, a lot of times fettuccine is done with Alfredo, which is more of a milk-based sauce. We're gonna do it today with a tomato-based sauce. So the first thing in the instructions it talks about, in these instructions, it actually uses the charcoal grill. We don't like to break ours out here, so we use our smoker, got the exact same effect on our tomatoes. Next thing that we're going to do is we're gonna have a saucepan and we're gonna cook up the bacon first. We'll get this cooking. And it's probably a tablespoon's worth of olive oil in that. I think we've got 8 ounces of chopped bacon. You'll let the oil get a little hotter. And we want to get the bacon crispy. So 3 to 5 minutes or so should be able to take care of it. We're fortunate that and I hope you can hear the sizzle, but our burners here get pretty quick, or get hot pretty quick. And all I'm doing is going to stir this around the bottom. Try to cover as much of the surface of the pan as you can, so it all kind of heats up at the same time. One of the ingredients is crushed red pepper. That is optional. We are going to use it today. Chef and I like it. So that will be in there. We also have an onion that has been finely diced. Then we're going to have some other herbs. You don't always have to add salt and pepper as you go through it. I like to do it, Chef. We kind of do every time we get a chance to salt and pepper, season the whatever we're cooking, we do. Bacon is naturally salty, so you don't have to add quite as much salt later in the dish. Other thing we'll be doing later today in this meal, we're going to cut up some parsley. We're also going to cut up some basil. We'll show you how to do that on the cutting board once we kind of get this started. And you can take out some of these ingredients. If you just want a tomato-based sauce, you do not have to have bacon in it. We're getting ready to put garlic in there. It's sliced. You could mince it. You could put it in garlic powder. So you don't have to have it if you don't want a strong garlic. I like to put garlic in everything. The noodles that we're using today, fettuccine noodles, when I cook mine, everybody says add salt to it. You want to do that. But I also I do salt, pepper, garlic, and olive oil to the boiling water, and then put my pasta in so it kind of coats it while it's there. So bacon is starting to get a little crispy. So we're going to add in our onion. Again, it was 1 onion finely diced. We're going to cook this a couple of minutes until these onions soften up. While they do that, they actually release a lot of water in onions. Turn their heat down a little. We're going to add in our garlic. Again, all we did was took cloves of garlic and sliced them pretty thinly. You can mince yours if you want. And then we have just a small amount, and I'm gonna have to look at it. A quarter of a teaspoon crushed red pepper flake. Stir this all around. And oh, how I wish you had smell-o-vision. Now, on the directions it says to use white wine here. We don't keep white wine here in the building, so we're gonna substitute that with some chicken stock. Just a little bit more flavor. And a lot of the dishes that we cook here, while we might use certain things, there are a lot of times alternates that could work for you. We'll do a lesson later in this series where we'll do one for diabetics that have very little carbs in it. And so there's a lot of substitutes that can be used. We're gonna make a pizza with no flour. It'll all be a cheese crust, and then you'll have your regular pizza toppings and things of that sort. So a lot of things when you're cooking, you can make it so that it fits you. If you don't like white wine, don't use it. Use some chicken stock. There's other things that you can use as well. Next thing we're gonna add in, this is actually a bundle of herbs. We have thyme, oregano, basil, and some parsley. And so we're tied it up. We're just gonna drop it in. It'll come out later, but it's here just for the flavor of it. Kind of let it on. So while this is simmering, I'm going to show you how to cut up some different herbs. So at the end of this, we're going to have some basil. Now basil comes in, it's a leaf. We pick them off. We pick the stems off as well. Not a lot of flavor in the stems themselves. And so we'll stack them. What we usually want to do is have the biggest ones on the bottom. So what we're going to do is then call it rolling the cigar. Just start tucking it under. So now I have it all the, and what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to rock this knife back and forth as I move my hands down the basil until I get to the end. And now I have, it's a little bit longer in different places, which is good. It adds a little bit more flavor. You could chop this one more time. We could turn it to its side and chop across, but we just need it like this here. We'll add that in near the end. We also have some parsley. Same thing is true on the parsley. You don't really need the stem part. So we go through and try to pick a lot of that out. We like the leaves. And this one, we aren't going to chop all of them. We need some for garnishment. So these I could roll them up in the same way, but I'll just go across the board with them, kind of going back and forth. Always try to keep the product near the back of the knife. It's easier to lift that up, especially if you had a lot of things you were trying to chop up. And all you're doing is walking it forward and back. And now we have some chopped parsley that we'll use later in this dish as well. All right. So that part seems to be about done. So what we're going to do, let me give this one last stir. The onions have softened. And now what we're going to do, oh, I got one I didn't take the skin off of. we're going to add in our tomatoes. This one still had the stem. All right. We have our other pan. It does take quite a few. Just so if you are making this dish, a lot of peeling of tomatoes. The knife does make it a little quicker. Some people think it takes away from the flavor if you use a knife. Haven't found that to be true. Another thing about tomatoes, and we'll talk about this in other dishes that we do today, a lot of people don't like tomatoes. And the reason that is most often given is the acidity in tomatoes. Well, the acidity in tomatoes comes from the seeds and the clear membrane that's inside of them. We have some dishes where we take most of that out. And by taking most of that out, it cuts down on that. We actually have a chunky guacamole that we make with Roma tomatoes that have been seeded. Also took off the skin on those. And you really don't taste the acid part of this. So if you're one of the people that do not like tomatoes because they're so acidic, try cutting apart a tomato and removing the seeds and the clear membrane, and then see if you like it. All right, we just need a few more of these and we will carry on. Okay. Again, I cook my pasta, salt, pepper, garlic, and olive oil, cook it through. We cook it al dente. The instructions on this will tell you cook it 2 minutes less than the package says. And the reason is because we're going to put it back into a hot liquid, and so it'll finish cooking when it's in there. So I am going to remove the seed or the herb packet. Now, this immersion blender, you just put it on the bottom of the pan itself. Pull the trigger, it'll start sucking everything in. You just got to move it around a little. You don't really want to raise it off the bottom. It'll start to shoot stuff everywhere, and that is not what we are looking for. This is going to kind of have a color like a traditional tomato sauce or tomato soup would. It's not a bright red sauce. It's a lot more of an orangish color, orangish red. When you get to the bottom ones, you can't find them. It does start shooting it everywhere. So we're blending all of that together. Again, there's the onions, the garlic, the bacon, and all of these. Yes. So as you can see now, we've gotten it more into a liquid form. And now we're going to bring our pasta back in. Load that. We're going to toss all of this together. We do have the heat on. We've had the heat on this pot the entire time. So all of this coming back. Next up, we're going to add a little bit of butter to this, a little bit of oregano. We're going to bring in our Misplaced. Oh, here it is. Our chopped basil. Get that in there. Chopped parsley. Gives a little color. Tablespoon of butter. And then we're going to salt and pepper. Again, the bacon that was in there already has some pepper on it, or salt on it, sorry. And then we did also salt and pepper the noodles as they were cooking. All right. Let me get our plate and we will plate this up for you. Before we plate everything, one thing you do want to do is you do want to taste it to know if it needs more of something. And I'm just going to taste the sauce. That's not bad. Needs a little more salt and pepper. Plate that. Add a little bit of Parmesan cheese to the top of it. We've got our parsley as well. And there you have fettuccine on a tomato sauce.
Now, we've made pizza before here at EC3, and we've made pizza here on EC3 Really Cooks, but this is going to be a royal pizza. Why is it a royal pizza? Because it was made specifically for Queen Margherita of Savoy. Okay. As the story goes, a peasant, a farmer, probably shouldn't use the word peasant, a farmer wanted to present the Queen with something unique and special, and so he came up with Pizza Margherita. Named it after her, uniquely because it has the colors of the Italian flag. That will be red for our tomato sauce, white for mozzarella cheese, and the green will be covered by a little fresh basil. So we've made pizza crust before, recipes attached, but anyway, I've got a pizza crust rolled out. Pizza sauce, this one in particular, easy peasy. It's nothing more than good tomatoes. To be classic Pizza Margherita, it has to be San Marzano tomatoes. A little oregano, olive oil, salt, pepper, and garlic, and that is that. This one doesn't even have to be cooked. So it's just a matter of ladling your pizza sauce out. Push it towards the edge. And I think that should suffice on the sauce. Then we have about 7 ounces or so of fresh mozzarella. Not the mozzarella that's packed in the way. It's a wonderful product. Love it for caprese salad. Doesn't quite work for this one. So it's dry. It's still fresh. So it's a scattering of cheese. And it's a small dice bass. More like medium dice, about a ½ inch square, 7 ounces, spread it out fairly well. Oh, different matter. Now, see, the cheese is salty, the sauce has salt and pepper in it. We don't really need to put any salt on top. It's not often you hear Mr. Bobby or me say don't put salt in it because we're changing steps. But this time we just don't need it. The motto is to always season in layers. That's why every time something goes into the pot, generally, so does cheese. Cheese, that was stupid. So does salt and pepper. Now, so we've got our red and our white. Our green's gonna have to wait. This has to get baked first. We don't wanna bake the basil. It will turn nasty. So I'm gonna go slide this into a deck oven just because I have one. You might not at the house, that's okay. You can do this in your regular oven, you can do this on a barbecue grill, you can cook it anywhere you can get a bunch of heat. Suggestion, try to find yourself a pizza stone to cook on, get it screaming hot before your pie goes in, or just go get your unglazed quarry tile. It's much cheaper, does exactly the same thing. So this is gonna go in the oven, and Mr. Bobby and I are gonna gather back up. We're gonna make a tomato salad. Be right back with you. Well, folks, I lied to you. I said Mr. Bobby and I were gonna make this salad. He's busy working on some fried green tomatoes for y'all, so I'm gonna finish up the salad. What we have here, just a handful of tomatoes. There's some green stripies, there's some yellow tomatoes, there's a couple different red tomatoes. I wish I knew the variety of them, but I don't. Sorry. We've tried to push out a lot of the seeds. We've talked about that. Went ahead and threw some salt on these and let them leach, that is to draw the moisture out, through this colander into this bowl. Still leach it a little bit. Okay. Remember, this is going to be a salad. It's not going to get cooked, so you want a few different sizes and shapes. You want to make it attractive in some fashion, give it a little interest. So we're going to set our tomatoes aside and concentrate on this tomato water because it's going to be our salad dressing. Now, we talked about earlier when we made our tomato pie, mustard has an emulsification tendency. So that's where we're going to start. Touch of mustard. Then we're going to need, there's some garlic and some shallot, everything minced small. Actually, I don't like the word minced, it's non-specific. I like the term brunoise. It has dimensions. It's a cube shape and about a 1/16 of an inch in that cube. So we'll call it a brunoise. Then we're going to need a little bit of red wine vinegar, about 2 tablespoons. So let's go ahead and start getting this put together real quick. One tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. It's a salad. You're making a salad dressing. Make it the way you like it. Now, that doesn't go for kids in my class. Sorry, they have to follow the recipe. They have to learn how to use the recipe. So there's that. They have their own days where they can make what they wish, kind of follow their heart. But they're here to learn how to use the recipe. Anyway. So all we have in here is our tomato water. Yes, that's what it's called. Garlic, shallots, and red wine vinegar. We're going to add just a touch of olive oil, reaching it up. And as we do most everything, just a touch of salt and pepper. It's not going to need much because that vinegar is going to mimic the effects of the salt. And we're going to take our tomatoes that have been leached and seasoned, toss them in our dressing. Now, classically, panzanella uses day-old or stale bread that's been toasted in the oven. We changed it around a little bit. We got us a baguette, sliced it on a diagonal, then threw it on the grill for a couple of minutes. Looks like watermelon and cantaloupe. Maybe that's just me. Then we're going to finish it with just a little chiffonade of basil. If you're an adventurous soul, you can put a little balsamic glaze on top of it, but that's what we're doing with it for today, and that is our panzanella on grilled bread. And Mr. Bobby, be right back with y'all. He's gonna put together some fried green tomatoes.
Welcome back to EC3 Really Cooks. It is tomato day, and we're gonna finish up with fried green tomatoes. First thing, when cutting a tomato, use a serrated blade. It'll get through it a little bit quicker. I'm just gonna cut the tops and bottoms off and use those for other things. Then I'm gonna cut them. It's gonna be about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. All right, and it's a very simple process after that. We have all-purpose flour, we have some salt and pepper, there's some Italian seasoning in that as well. Our egg wash has eggs and water, salt and pepper, and then we have panko breadcrumbs, and again we have salt, pepper, and some Italian seasoning in that as well. You don't have to use panko breadcrumbs. You can use regular breadcrumbs. You can take cornflakes, crush them up. Anything you want to bread it in, you can bread it in. The first 2 steps are probably going to be the same every time though, and then into the breadcrumbs. So you're going to end up with what we would call Chewbacca fingers here in just a second. So all you're going to do, put the tomato into the flour mixture, and what you want to do after each of these each step, you want to make sure you get as much off of it as you can. Okay, you don't want to carry a lot of it into the next part. So one side, coat on the other. You need to make sure there's some parts usually that don't get coated. You might have to flip it over 2 or 3 times. Drain it off, put it in your panko, push it down in there, build it up around it, cover it up. And what you're trying to do is make sure that every one of them, every piece is covered. And there is the first step. You can do these with non-green tomatoes. These work better because they're not quite ripe yet, which, because we're frying them, is one of the things that's really good with it. It'll very rapidly, I guess, ripen it up. And then our last one, then we're going to go over to the fryer and we will fry away. What you want to do is you have your oil, set it on 365, 370, somewhere in there. That's warm enough. That's very warm actually. And it'll take 3 or 4 minutes for them. All you're going to do is till they're golden brown and delicious. And this is what happens to your fingers. Everybody says do a dry hand and a wet hand. They all turn out like that. So now we're going to go over to our fryer and we're going to fry these up.
Well, folks, there you have it. This is our tomato feast. The panzanella, our little twist is just, we don't put the bread in it, we put it on the bread. We've got our tomato pie, and we've got it served up with a couple of Mr. Bobby's fried green tomatoes. We've got Mr. Bobby's turn on Michael Simon's smoked tomato sauce with fettuccine, and we've got our royal pizza in honor of Queen Margherita of Savoy. So, folks, that's it for today. We appreciate you coming to visit. Again, I'm Roger Ramsey here at the Early College and Career Center. If we do anything for you, just give us a shout, shoot me an email. All that contact information will be attached to the end of the show. And we'll appreciate your time, and we'll see you very soon. Take care now.